What is up, everybody? It's 414 Anime here for Anime Uproar, and today I will be breaking down and explaining every Espada's power from Bleach. The Espada are all insanely powerful Arrancar and are without a doubt some of Bleach's best designs when it comes to its characters. Now, if you do enjoy these Bleach videos on the channel and you'd like to see more, you know what to do. Smash that like button, Getsuga Tensho style. If you haven't already, make this the video you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. Now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. The Espada are made up of 10 exemptional Arrancar that boast insane strength and spiritual power. They are ranked 0 through to 9, and the lower the number, the stronger that Espada is. Each of these Espada have their rank tattooed somewhere on their body. Now, Espada is the Spanish word for sword and the Japanese for 10 blades. The Espada, alongside Tozen Kaname, Gin Ichimaru, and of course Sosuke Aizen himself, are all on par with the Gotei 13 when it comes to their power. The Espada themselves are Aizen's most direct subordinates, though the Espada did already exist prior to Aizen's betrayal of the Soul Society. Once Aizen arrived, the Espada became one of his most important structures, and the members as well as their positions were changed. Aizen had such a respect for his Espada, well, more so for their abilities than anything else, and was also very lenient with them as long as they remained loyal and carried out his plans. But he would also trust them with his intimate plans, such as the destruction of Karakura Town as an obvious example. The creation of the Okun as well as the Hogyoku's location within Las Noches was also trusted to them, if only to test a select few. As such, Aizen would discuss his plans and the events of Hueco Mundo with his dear Espada directly, sitting on the same table with them. He trusted his Espada with important and very dangerous missions, such as gathering information from the human world, fighting those within the Gotei 13 themselves, and so on. Now, becoming an Espada was the goal for any Arrancar, as you possessed great power, held rank over others, were in direct contact with Aizen, and had a host of other luxuries, which included having your own quarters within Las Noches that were designed to suit that Espada's very specific needs. Being his most direct subordinates, an Espada has an insane amount of power as well as leadership capabilities, with each of them able to execute command over Aizen's forces within his stronghold of Las Noches. His forces included numeros, who were combat experts amongst the Arrancar. As well as that, he had the Exequias, who were the execution division. Each of the Espada also had their own Fraction, or subordinate officers, that the Espada had chosen specifically from the numeros. When it comes to power, the difference between an Espada and his Fraction was likened to that of a captain in the Gotei 13 and their lieutenants. However, the Espada was much stronger than those in his or her Fraction. The command also reaches to the Espada's rank. The higher ranking Espada would still dish out orders to the lower ranked Espadas, and they would follow the higher rank's command. Well, supposedly anyway. There was a lot of infighting amongst the ranks of the Espada, just as you see in any groups such as these. Now, the lower ranks would often take the lead and use their own initiative. However, the higher ranks were a lot more like trained loyal dogs, in the fact that they would follow Aizen's every command to the very word. And despite their infighting, the Espada were very loyal to one another. The higher ranks would be the first to try and bail out the lower ranks for their mistakes, and they had a mutual bond that above all they wished to prevent losing one of their own. Now, when it came to power, each of the Espada boasts incredible spiritual power and are masters in combat. They were keen strategists, expert swordsmen, and masters of high-speed movement. As Espada, they all had their own unique set of powers and abilities, but they also shared some Espada exclusive abilities such as Kaja Negation, which was a variant of the Gillian exclusive ability Negation, which was a beam used by Hollows to rescue their comrades. Kaja Negation was a cube-shaped device that would simulate the same effects as the Negation fields. The cube would trap their target in an alternate dimension that an average Arrancar could not escape. This was often used by an Espada as a form of punishment to those in their fraction. And though it could be used on other Espada, it rarely was. This was due to the fact that their power was of course far greater than that of an average Arrancar, and they would be able to escape that alternate dimension in only a matter of time. Gran Rey Cero is a variation of the Cero technique, where the Espada can mix their own blood with the blast of the Cero to greatly enhance its attack power. Its power is great in so much that it would disturb the very fabric of space. And they can also use an ability called Cero Oscuras, which was again another variant of the Cero used in their released state. As well as this, the Espada had their own Zanpakuto, each with their own sets of unique powers and abilities. Then of course there was their Resurreccion. This is where they released their weapon seal, unleashing their true power and true forms. To return to their humanoid form, they simply reseal their power within its sword form. The Espada who were ranked 4th or higher, i.e. between 4 and 0, were all actually forbidden from using their Zanpakuto within Las Noches, and all Espada were forbidden from using a Gran Rey Cero, due to both's insane destructive power. Either of these are said to be enough to completely destroy the majority of Las Noches. So with that rundown on the Espada, let's look into the powers and abilities of the Espada, starting from the lowest rank of 9 through to the top dog at 0. Aaroniero was the 9th ranked of Aizen's Espada. His tattoo location is on his top and bottom heads. Each of the Espada all represent an aspect of death, and Aarioniero's is greed. As well as having all the traits we had mentioned previously in regards to him being a master swordsman, a keen strategist, a sonido expert as an Espada, etc., Aaroniero had an ability called Cognition Synchronization, where he could instantly broadcast any and all information that he was either seeing or experiencing to his comrades. His Zanpakuto was called Glottoneria, which is Spanish for the word gluttony and Japanese for hollow eater. The form of his Zanpakuto was that of a real nasty looking brown tentacle attached to his arm that had a gaping worm-like mouth with many other tentacles. This was oftenly hid under a glove on his left hand. Its abilities included hollow absorption. Now, hollows were cannibals in the fact that they would prey and feed on one another in order to gain more power in the hope of rising through the ranks when they got smart enough. Aarioniero's ability was unique in the fact that he could absorb dead hollows and still gain both its spirit power and abilities. This allowed him to evolve without limit, unlike normal hollows, and as such was the only Gillian-class Menos amongst the Espada. Aaroniero claimed to have eaten and gained the strength of around 33,650 hollows by the time he fought with Rukia Kuchiki. Another scary ability of Glottoneria is its aspect manifestation, in which it allowed Aaroniero to perfectly copy and manifest any of those that he had previously absorbed. This included that person's knowledge and memories, physical form and powers, even their muscle memory was replicated so that his battle style became an exact copy of the originals. Not only that, but Aaroniero could also call upon and use any of the powers he absorbed from others whenever he so chose. Aaroniero absorbed Metastasia, who was an experimental hollow used by Aizen, and thus showcased some of the powers he gained from him, which included the ability to merge his own body with other beings, including Shinigami. He could also destroy a Shinigami Zanpakuto if they were to simply touch one of his tentacles when he was in his released form. Now let's talk about Aroniero's Resurreccion. It was activated by using the command Devour. When released, it turned his lower body into a huge purple-like blob, which looked kind of like an octopus. It had dozens of, again, tentacles, as well as large red eyes and a huge mouth with nasty-looking teeth. At the center of this was a bubbling area that would display the masks of random hollows that Aaroniero had consumed. In his Resurreccion state, Aaroniero stated he could manifest the power of all of those 33,650 hollows that he had consumed at once, making him a one-man army when it came to his power. Szayelaporro was the 8th ranked of Aizen's Espada. His tattoo location is unknown, but his aspect of death was madness. Now, he is the top researcher and spiritual weapons specialist of the Espada, and like Mayuri from the Soul Society, he's certainly a bit twisted when it comes to the experiments and such. Szayelaporro had a very unique fraction that he had modded before having them turned into Arrancar. He wasn't just smart scientifically, but was also a master of invention, as he had created a maze that would constantly shift throughout his domain in Hueco Mundo. And within this ever-changing maze were traps laying in wait to ensnare his prey. He, again like Mayuri, loved to thoroughly analyze his opponent's abilities so that he could completely nullify them on the battlefield. The only problem when facing Szayelaporro is that his analyzing was all done there and then on the battlefield. The speed at which he could completely break down an attack's components and then render them completely useless in such a short time was amazing, but also very, very scary. His Zanpakuto was called Fornicatus, which meant consort of lewdness in Japanese. Pretty strange, right? Anyway, his Zanpakuto had the appearance of a regular katana. Szayelaporro's Resurreccion release is SIP. He actually releases it by calling out its command and then completely swallowing the sword. He undergoes a change in which the lower half of his body becomes tentacle-like, with his feet appearing beneath them. His attire is like a layered dress with white sleeves extending from his elbow. In these wide sleeves were more tentacle-like things hanging from them. His hollow mask takes the form of a headdress that is a thin band around his forehead and extends under his eyes to look like glasses. As well as this, he also gains wings that again have those same tentacle drippings coming off of them. In this form, the wings act as a form of defense where he will wrap them around himself, thickening till he takes the form of a ball that will block any oncoming attacks. Szayelaporro's release state gives him quite a few different and definitely unique and powerful abilities. He has carbon copy, where a black liquid will come out of his back that will make an exact copy of his opponent that will be able to use the same abilities of the one that it had copied. Even if it was simply a single drop of this liquid that touches his opponent, its effects remain the same. And it must be mentioned that he can also modify these clones to his liking. This, in Szayelaporro's case, is often aesthetic changes to suit his own standards, let's say. He has an ability called Puppet Theater, where he can grab an opponent with one of his wings and then spit them out. One of the strands of his wings fills up with a purple liquid that bursts open, revealing a voodoo-like doll of his victim. Any damage done to the doll, and in particular its organs, will be dealt directly to the one to whom the doll is linked to. Szayelaporro loves to toy with his victims by using this technique. He will take the doll apart and take the organs out one by one. Being a very knowledgeable man, he knows exactly which organs to destroy that will keep his victim alive while inflicting devastating pain to them. Szayelaporro can also liquefy his own body so that if he is eaten, he can invade that person's nervous system and completely take control of their body. The final ability we know of is called Gabriel, which is Japanese for notice of conception. This ability allows him to be reborn if he was fatally injured by, get this, impregnating his enemy. Yeah. So when he makes physical contact with another, he can implant a portion of himself within their body, to which he will then eat his way out of them while absorbing all of their fluids and chemicals. This is both a very nasty and fatal ability to his victim. Szayelaporro comes out of his victim in a liquid form and will then develop his body back to its original state in a matter of seconds. Zommari is the 7th ranked of Aizen's Espada. His tattoo location is unknown and his aspect of death is heroism. Zommari holds the title for the fastest sonido, not only among all of the Arrancar, but the Espada too. He moves so fast that if he was to increase the speed of his steps by just a tiny amount, it would begin to make clones of himself that he refers to as like a kind of magic trick. This trick is used to both confuse and surprise his opponent. Zommari has stated that he can make up to 5 speed clones using this technique, using them for diverse and multi-directional attacks. Now, Zommari's Zanpakuto is called Brujeria, which is Spanish for the word witchcraft and Japanese for cursing eye monk. Its appearance is that of a normal katana, and his Resurreccion's release command is Subside. His body becomes covered in 50 open eyes, and his legs turn into that of a pink pumpkin. He gains a skull-like neck brace that has an open eye on the front. The abilities of his release state are all based around the eyes in this new form. So Zommari can take control of one object per eye. Once the object is under his control, a sun-shaped mark will appear on it, and this gives Zommari full control over said object. The insane thing is that he can use this on one of the limbs of his opponent. Once under his control, that person's brain can no longer influence the use or movement of said limb, to which Zommari will often cause that person to injure themselves with it. Not only that, but he can also use it to reduce that person's movement. Now, if he chooses to take control of a person's head, then he will gain control over that person's entire body. Of course, if his gaze is interrupted, then control of that object is lost. He has another ability called the Embryo, which is a defensive one, where that lower half of his body will become a full sphere, protecting the upper half of his body too. This of course breaks the gaze of his eyes that are controlling objects, but it is a super strong defense. It was even able to hold off Byakuya's Zenbon Zagara Kageyoshi. Next up is Grimmjow, who is the 6th ranked of Aizen's Espada. His tattoo location is on the right side of his lower back, and the aspect of death that he represents is destruction. Grimmjow is an absolute powerhouse. He is a master of hand-to-hand combat and an expert swordsman. He has an ability called Hierro, which is Spanish for iron and Japanese for iron skin, where he was able to stop the attack from a released Shikai with just his bare hand, receiving absolutely no damage at all. He was even able to grab Ichigo's Bankai in the same manner as just described, which is just crazy. His Zanpakuto is called Pantera, not to be mistaken with the band. This is Spanish for the word panther and Japanese for panther king. He was able to perform a partial transformation of his released state, where his hands changed to that of black claws, similar to that, of course, of a panther. Sticking with the transformation topic, the release command for his Resurreccion is Grind. His appearance completely changes, matching that of his panther theme. The claws, of course, from his partial transformation, not only has his hands changed, but his feet too. His teeth become much more jagged and feline-like. He also gains the addition of a long whip-like tail. His hair grows in length, and the markings around his eyes have become enlarged. His ears also increase in length to look more feline-like. The mask around his jaw is now a headband that covers his forehead. So in terms of power, once his Resurreccion has been released, his strength, speed, and agility are all dramatically increased, as well as his Hierro that we mentioned earlier, making him incredibly hard to damage. He also had a sonic wave ability where he would roar at the top of his lungs, creating a sonic wave so powerful that it would completely destroy that in the surrounding area and knock his opponents off guard. Then there was Garra de la Pantera, which was Spanish for Claw of the Panther and Japanese for Panther Hooks. This ability is where Grimmjow would fire bombs from his elbow at incredibly fast speeds. In fact, Grimmjow could fire up to 5 bombs all at once. These bombs were green in colour and looked like crystal darts, strong enough to take out columns over 30 meters in diameter. And credit to our boy, our hollow-masked Ichigo somehow managed to withstand 5 of these bombs and was still able to keep fighting Grimmjow. The last ability, which Grimmjow claimed to be his strongest, is called Desgarron, which is Spanish for laceration or great tear, and Japanese for Panther King's Claw. His claws begin to glow and he makes a slashing motion aimed towards his target, and each of his claws become a sharp and long blade made of spiritual energy that are then hurled straight at them. Grimmjow can swing a maximum of 10 of these blades at a target. This ranged attack is not only incredibly powerful, but also controlled, making them near impossible to dodge or block. Luppi was the 6th ranked Espada in Aizen's command, temporarily replacing Grimmjow before being killed by, Grimmjow himself. So his tattoo location is on his right hip, and his aspect of death is unknown. He was a pretty strong character, but nothing compared to Grimmjow at all. Luppi had all the traits and abilities of an Espada, but nothing really that individual until, of course, we look into his Zanpakuto and Resurreccion. So his Zanpakuto was called Trepadora, which is Spanish for climbing vine and Japanese for ivy maiden. His Zanpakuto was like that of a Kodachi. Luppi's Resurreccion command was Strangle, and when activated he gained 8 huge tentacles connected at his back in a hexagon shape. Now, is it just me, or do a lot of these Espada powers that we've covered so far anyway involve tentacles? It's so Japanese. Anyway, so his Resurreccion's special ability, of course, all revolve around the 8 tentacles on his back, and he has 4 abilities we know of that include Lanza Tentaculo. This is Spanish for lance tentacle and Japanese for tactile lance. As the name suggests, Luppi uses his tentacle as a lance as he thrusts one of them at very high speeds right towards his target with a force that, to be fair to him, is no joke. Jaula Tentaculo, Spanish for cage tentacle and Japanese for tactile cage, is an attack utilizing all of his 8 tentacles where he will attack his target from multiple angles. Yeah, just like that of a cage, where he will then crush them with devastating force. La Hélice, which is Spanish for the propeller and Japanese for whirling arm array, is where Luppi will use his tentacles like a helicopter, spinning them at incredible speeds, allowing him to attack multiple targets at once, or hitting one target multiple times with these high-speed, powerful whip-like attacks. The final ability is called Hierro Vergen, which is both Spanish and Japanese for Iron Maiden. The tentacles coming from his back all gain additional spikes at their ends, which will inflict additional injury on top of his usual whip-like attacks. Nnoitra is the 5th Espada in Aizen's ranks. His tattoo location is on his tongue, and his aspect of death is despair. He holds the title of the holder of the strongest hierro of all Arrancar, and that's including all Espada, both past and present too. This allows him to withstand pretty much almost any attack without receiving a single scratch of damage. His Zanpakuto is called Santa Teresa, which means praying mantis, and is Japanese for sacred screaming praying mantis. So, Nnoitra's Zanpakuto is unique compared to the others, as instead of being a standard sword type, it is that of a giant axe scythe. It takes the form of 2 crescent moon-shaped blades. And due to its difference, Nnoitra is a master scytheman who is trained relentlessly with his weapon, wielding it with complete ease and translating his savage nature into its attacks. His Resurreccion command is Prey. In his released form, Nnoitra gains the addition of an extra pair of arms that, as well as his previous arms, look like that of an insect's. Each hand wields a giant scythe weapon as well, which really goes with his praying mantis-like theme. As well as this, he gains a gold marking that goes from his forehead to below his right eye, and the addition of horns shaped again like a crescent moon, where the left horn is longer than the right. His hollow mask also changes, where it is now torn that has teeth all extending over his hole. Now, the special ability of his Resurreccion is basically the addition of his arms and scythes, but he also gains a considerable boost to his already overwhelming physical abilities. So, we're talking enhanced strength and spiritual power here. As well as that, he has very high speed regeneration, where any wounds inflicted are all healed within an instant. Can I say that's already on top of his extreme hero? Yeah. He can also grow an extra set of arms below the others, giving him a total of 6, all of course with scythes. He tends to keep the third pair hidden and will use them as a sort of surprise attack. And Nnoitra also has weapon generation, where he can grow his scythe-like weapons from his wrist if he needed to replace lost or damaged scythes. Ulquiorra is the 4th Espada in Aizen's ranks. His tattoo location is on the left side of his chest, and his aspect of death is nihilism. Ulquiorra isn't just an incredibly strong Espada, but also one that possesses a very keen intellect. He is gifted at understanding the situation at hand and has great insight. His calm, collected nature combined with his intelligence is something that Aizen, who has a masterful intellect himself, has a lot of respect for. Ulquiorra also has Solita Vista, which is Spanish for accustomed view and Japanese for inclusive field of view, where he can replay events that he himself has seen and also replay those events to others by removing and crushing one of his eyes. The crushed eye then turns to a dust that can also relay not only his sight but his own feelings too. Being an Espada, the high-speed regeneration that he has obviously replenishes these crushed eyes of his. He can also create large television screens made out of individual Garganta portals to put together a visual broadcast of events he is currently witnessing. Ulquiorra's Zanpakuto is called Yammy Llargo, which is Spanish for bat and Japanese for great black-winged demon. His Zanpakuto resembles that of a standard katana. And his Resurreccion release command is Enclose or Imprison. Upon release, Ulquiorra's appearance becomes more bat-like as he gains 2 enormous black wings that protrude from his back. His hair also grows longer, gaining 2 horns from the hollow mask atop of his head. The black markings on his face become more triangular and his fingernails also lengthen. His Resurreccion significantly boosts his strength, spiritual power, his speed, and his hero. Not only that, but it comes with a couple of abilities, with the first being Luz de la Luna. This is Spanish for light of the moon. This ability allows Ulquiorra to generate green energy javelins that he will use to either throw at his opponent at high speeds or to use as a melee weapon. He also has the Cero Oscuras ability that all Espada class have, except his is a black beam with a green outline, packing one hell of a punch. Now, Ulquiorra has a second stage of his Resurreccion called Segunda Etapa. This is Spanish for Resurrection Second Stage and Japanese for Second Stage Resurrection. Ulquiorra calls his second state True Despair and states that he is the only Arrancar in the Espada who can perform a second stage Resurreccion, and even Aizen himself hasn't seen this form. Now, appearance-wise, this form looks amazing as he keeps his black bat wings. His coat from the previous form is no more, bearing his bare chest with his hollow hole becoming larger and has like a black blood liquid coming from it. He has black fur covering the waist down as well as his arms. He also gains claw extensions from his fingers and his irises turn yellow. The hollow mask is now completely gone as well as his Espada tattoo. So his spiritual power is again dramatically increased. So much so that those that can feel his spirit power feel complete despair themselves. He has an ability called Latigo, which is Spanish for whip, where Ulquiorra will use his long thin tail like a whip to either strike, lift, or even strangle his opponent. The big boy ability in his second stage is called Lanza del Relámpago, which is Spanish for Lance of Lightning and Japanese for Lance of Thunder and Lightning. Using his insane spiritual power, Ulquiorra creates a javelin, similar to the ones in his previous form. However, these have spirit energy flowing off of either side that look like green flames, making it more arrow-shaped. Again, he can use this for both range and melee attacks, but when used at range, the destructive power of this thing is just absolutely nuts. Ulquiorra can throw 3 of these in quick succession, though in doing so, he has difficulty in controlling their accuracy. These things also tend to instantly disintegrate anything that they strike. Harribel is the 3rd ranked Espada in Aizen's army. Her tattoo location is on her right breast, and her aspect of death is sacrifice. Harribel is incredibly gifted with the sword, but one of the things that makes her unique is the fact that she is ambidextrous, meaning that she can easily swap her sword between her left and right hand while wielding the same prowess with both. Her Zanpakuto is called Tiburon, which is Spanish for shark and Japanese for supernal shark empress. Her Zanpakuto is unique in appearance as it isn't very long, but it is wide, and it is also completely hollow in the middle. She has an ability called Ola Azul, Spanish for blue wave, and Japanese for blue wave gun. Harribel pulls her sword backwards as it charges itself with yellow spirit energy in that hollow portion of the blade. Once charged, she can fire the energy as a blast straight at her opponent. She can also keep that energy stable within the blade and use it as a sort of ribbon when attacking. So her Resurreccion command is Destroy. Her appearance changes to that of a much more revealing one, as both her clothes and her Espada tattoo are gone. Her mask becomes the only garment that is now covering her. On her arms, she gains gauntlets that are like shark fins and have 2 ribbons that protrude from her back. She also gains a spine-like pattern on her stomach and wears a miniskirt made out of bones. Her sword also changes to resemble that of a giant shark tooth that has a pretty unusual hilt, as well as a handguard that completely covers her hand. In terms of power in her Resurreccion form, her physical powers are all enhanced, and she also gains abilities that are all water-based. The main ability she has is that she can create and manipulate water. The water that is used for her attacks are all generated from the gill in her sword. And she had an ability called Trident, where she will infuse her sword with spirit energy, causing it to glow. She will then fire 3 high-speed slashes that will cause severe injury upon impact. Then there is Hirviendo, which is Spanish for boiling and Japanese for burning current. Harribel will simply point her blade out in front of her, and any water that is near her will instantly boil, including that of ice. La Gota, which is Spanish for drop and Japanese for war drop, is an ability where Harribel will condense a large amount of water around her sword that she will fire towards her target. The blast of water is in the shape of a shark's tooth, and she can fire multiple blasts in very quick succession. The final ability is called Cascada, which is Spanish for waterfall and Japanese for cutting waterfall. This one is simple enough, as it is a large blast of rushing water fired straight towards her enemy. Nelliel was the former 3rd Espada, also known as Nelliel Tu. Her tattoo location is on her mid-back, and her aspect of death is unknown. So first, let's talk about her child form, where she has a couple of abilities. The first is called Nell Shower, where her saliva possesses a very weak healing power. So, to gain this saliva, Nell will make herself vomit and then use the saliva on the poor soul who needs healing. She also has Chokasoku. This is super acceleration that does look like it's a form of Sonido. Now, Nelliel's special ability is called Zero Double, which is Spanish for double zero and Japanese for heavy duet hollow flash. This is an ability where she will absorb an incoming Seto and then fire one of her own Setos while returning the one she had absorbed. She can still do this in her child form, but in her true form, this is much more devastating. So in her true form, Nelliel Zanpakuto To is called Gamuza, which is Japanese for Capricorn Knight. Her Resurreccion command is Declare or Praise. Nelliel's new form is like that of a centaur, where her lower half is like that of a horse. Her hollow mask becomes longer and curved, and the crack that was once on her mask is now completely gone, though the missing teeth still remain. On her shoulders are now white spolders that cover the shoulder blade and her neck. As well as this, she also has white elbow guards and white gauntlets. Her sword is also replaced with a giant double-sided lance. Now, the only attack we have seen Nelliel use in her Resurreccion form is called Lanzador Verde, which is Spanish for Green Lancer and Japanese for Kingfisher Green Javelin. Here, Nelliel throws her javelin at her opponent with intense speeds. As the javelin travels through the air, it begins to spin and build up spiritual energy that will drill her opponent upon impact. The destructive piercing damage of this attack is brutal. Brutal enough that it damaged Nnoitra Zanpakuto and pushed him back when he attempted to block it. Baraggan is the second ranked Espada and was the former ruler of Las Noches, known as the God King of Hueco Mundo. His tattoo location is unknown and his aspect of death is senescence. As the representation of this aspect of death, aka aging brought on by time, he has some abilities linked to this. So the first is a time dilation field that will slow the acceleration of time around him, meaning that those trying to attack him are all reduced in their normal speeds. This gives Baraggan more than enough time to counterstrike those in his area. He also has age acceleration, where he can accelerate the age of anything that he touches. He used this on Soifone, aging her left arm to the point that the bones broke due to how delicate they had become. His Zanpakuto is called Arrogante, which is Spanish for arrogant and Japanese for Grand Emperor of Skulls. His Zanpakuto is unique just as Nnoitra's, as his takes the form of a giant double-headed battle axe rather than that of a normal sword. The release command of his Resurreccion is Rot or Decay, and like the other Espada, Baraggan undergoes a visual transformation. So, purple flames appear that begin to burn his own flesh until all that remains are bones. He has a skeletal head and arms, and his body is covered in a purple cape with a black fur collar. He wears golden chains around his neck that at the center has a red gem, which was the eye of his Zanpakuto. His hollow mask has turned into an elegant and beautifully designed golden crown that is worn upon his head, or skull, I guess you could say here. Like many others, his Resurreccion has greatly enhanced all of his previous physical abilities and has also enhanced his synestia. His mere presence ages and deteriorates every object that is around him, meaning he is pretty much invincible when it comes to close range attacks. Even most range attacks have no effect, as when the projectiles enter his space, they are aged and decay at an alarming rate. He also has the ability Respira, which is Spanish for breathe and Japanese for breath of death. Baraggan unleashes a black and purple mist from himself that ages and rots anything that it comes into contact with. Baraggan can also control the speed at which this mist is unleashed as well. The final ability Baraggan has in his Resurreccion form is called Gran Caída, which is Spanish for Great Fall and Japanese for Axe of Ruin. Baraggan can wield a double-sided axe like his Zanpakuto, but in a Resurreccion form that is hidden inside of his purple cloak. The axe is slimmer in this form and the blades look like wings. It has also got golden chains that drape over the blades and extend back into his cloak that are attached to a bracelet that he is wearing. This axe boasts incredible power and can be used to spread his Respira mist by swinging it. Starrk is the first ranked Espada in Aizen's army. His tattoo location is on the back of his left hand and his aspect of death is solitude. The main thing to point out about Starrk is how highly perceptive he is while in combat. He picks up on all of the tiny details during a battle, such as his opponent's mannerisms, which he then breaks down into the reasoning behind their attack patterns as well as that person's strengths and weaknesses. He can also work out a person's attacks by simply observing them once. Now, Starrk is definitely unique when it comes to the Espada, as his power is not sealed within a Zanpakuto toe, but is instead sealed within his own subordinate Lilynette, with whom the two of them were once the same hollow. This second being, if you will, is called Los Lobos, which is Spanish for the wolves and Japanese for just simply wolves. The release command for his Resurreccion is kick about or give chase. In his released form, Starrk wields two identical pistols. These pistols are actually Lilynette, as the pistols contain her body and her consciousness. She herself can talk through these pistols and can still feel things too. A part of Lilynette's hollow mask now appears on Starrk's head that stretches from the back all the way around to his eyepiece on his left eye. The mask is connected by two chains, again around that left eye. Attire-wise, he also gains the addition of a grey fur-lined jacket over a double-breasted vest, and his legs are covered in dark skin-tight pants, while his lower legs and arms are covered in that same grey fur. The ability of his Resurreccion follow trend, where they greatly enhance his previous stats but also grant him new abilities. So he has enhanced strength and enhanced Hierro, but he also has enhanced Cero firing, as he can fire these from his twin pistols without needing to charge them. Starrk himself claims that he can shoot 1000 Cero at once. According to Shunsui, the Cero shot from the right gun are more powerful, but the Cero fired from the left pistol are much faster. He also has the ability Cero Metralla, which is Spanish for Submachine Gun Zero and Japanese for Infinite Ammunition Hollow Flash. This is where Starrk will use his pistols to unleash a powerful barrage of Cero that will fuse together to make one giant and very powerful Cero blast. If that wasn't enough, Starrk can also change the direction of the Cero while firing, making it near impossible to avoid. Starrk also has Colmillo, which is Spanish for fang. Here, Starrk can summon swords made of spiritual energy that look like regular katana. The final ability is Soul Partition, which is an ability that comes from their original hollow, where they can split and divide their two souls. However, when they are combined, they can split themselves into other entities, such as a large pack of wolves, at the cost of their pistols. Starrk commands the pack of wolves to track down his enemies, and once found, the wolves will bite their target and explode upon impact. These wolves can move through cracks and extend their bodies so that they can unleash a fast and accurate attack. Starrk has said that these wolves are way more deadlier than a Cero and can overwhelm two captain-classed opponents at the same time. Yammy is the 10th ranked Espada, however becomes rank 0 once his Zanpakuto toe is unleashed. His tattoo location is on his left shoulder and his aspect of death is Rage. His power comes from his aspect of death, which is Rage, and he is the only Espada who can conserve his own spirit energy by sleeping and eating. These power reserves build up over time, allowing him to enter his Resurreccion form, which unleashed his true power and changes his Espada rank completely. As Yammy's anger increases, as does his physical size and power too. Now, he has an ability called Gonzui, which is unique to him. Yammy can suck out the souls from the living, which to him he sees as just another form of eating. Obviously, the more souls he eats, the more spiritual energy he can add to his reserves. And interestingly, he has stated that the weaker the soul's spirit energy, the worse it tastes to him. So his Zanpakuto toe, that is called Ira, which is Spanish for anger and Japanese for enraged beast. His Resurreccion command is Enrage, to which his Zanpakuto toe explodes and Yammy grows into an insane size that looks like a Japanese kaiju. His skull ridges become more pronounced and become head coverings going around the back of his head, and the white hollow mask fragments become his jaw. His entire body becomes a more tanned colour, and his ponytail also increases in length. His upper body remains roughly about the same, only larger. However, he gains 8 huge white elephant legs and had a white tail that is shaped like a club. He also has large tubes that come out of his elbows, and he gains 5 black tubes similar to the ones on his elbows, but these appear on his back. Now, in terms of abilities when in this form, well, it's basically just one huge power-up. His strength, spiritual power, and endurance all skyrocket. The defenses of his Hierro are dramatically increased, and his Zero and Bala blasts are also greatly enhanced. Now, the crazy thing is that it doesn't stop there, as he also has rage-powered evolution, where both his size and strength still continue to grow the more he becomes angrier. There is actually a certain level of anger that he can reach that will cause his Resurreccion to evolve further, where his appearance changes. His damage mask is now restored. The black tubes on his back become more like a spiked spine, and he gains 2 absolutely massive horns that protrude from his back. He also gains numerous horns on his head, some that cover his jaw. He takes on the form of more of a gorilla here, where his arms are puffed outwards and he has 2 hairy legs with toes instead of the 8 elephant legs that he had in his pre-evolved form. This guy is just absolutely insane when it comes to power, and man, I'm sure none of us saw this coming when we were first introduced to him as the 10th ranked Espada. And that is it, every Espada's power and ability from Bleach explained. These guys are just nuts when it comes to their powers, but also in their designs. I always thought the Espada just looked so unique, and not only in their Resurreccion forms, though of course that is where the true beauty of their designs come to life. Definitely make sure to let us know in the comment section below who your favorite Espada is and which one you thought looked the best design wise. Of course, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more Bleach videos on the channel, make sure to let us know by smashing that like button, Getsuga Tensho style. If you haven't, make this the video you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications, or you will miss future Anime Uproar videos. Remember, you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. Thanks again, and we cannot wait to see you in the next one. Peace!